All right, so you handed us a stack of research on ADHD, and wow, um, it's way more than just kids bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
It seems like this deep dive needs to uncover the real impact of ADHD, especially those things people don't always see,
Hmm.
and what actually helps, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's ditch that. It's just a phase myth right away.
Okay.
The research shows ADHD can stick around into adulthood
Okay.
anywhere from 4% to a whopping 76% of the time.
Okay. 4% to 76%. It's
Yeah.
a huge difference.
Right.
What explains that range?
It's all about the specifics.
Oh,
How severe the ADHD was in childhood.
right.
Whether depression or behavioral issues were also in the mix.
Yeah.
Those things really impact whether it persists.
So for a lot of people, this isn't something they just grow out of.
Right.
What stood out to me was how this impacts people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just talking about not focusing in school, right?
Right. One study even estimated folks with ADHD may live 8.4 years less than those without.
Oh, 8.4 years? That's huge. What's causing that?
A big part is a higher risk of death from what they call unnatural causes,
Okay.
primarily things like accidents, especially car accidents,
Right.
and suicide.
Okay, so understanding ADHD isn't just about textbook symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
It's about real-life safety, too.
Right.
Makes you think about how important diagnosis and treatment are.
Exactly. And the driving thing is a big deal.
Okay.
Some research suggests driving with ADHD can be as risky as driving drunk.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like legally drunk?
Yep. One study used a driving simulator,
All right.
and adults with ADHD had way more crashes, even though they understood driving rules just fine.
Wow.
It's that attention and control piece that gets disrupted,
Yeah.
which researchers see in kids with ADHD too.
So treatment could potentially prevent accidents. That's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
What about the social side of things?
That often gets overlooked.
Right.
But think about it, the ways ADHD makes someone act can lead to others reacting negatively, even if the person with ADHD doesn't realize they're doing anything wrong.
Yeah, one article talked about how moms with ADHD often struggle feeling like effective parents.
Right.
It's a cycle. Their symptoms impact how they parent,
Mm-hmm.
which then makes things even harder.
Exactly. It shows how much support is needed,
Yeah.
not just for the individual, but
Mm.
for families dealing with ADHD too.
Okay, so we've got the risks, the social stuff.
Yeah.
What about work and school?
Yeah,
Does ADHD impact that as well?
it definitely does. Interestingly, some studies suggest academic performance might actually get better as some people with ADHD age,
Oh, interesting.
though we don't fully understand why that is.
Maybe it's about like developing coping strategies as you get older.
It's possible. But even with some improvements over time, many adults with ADHD still have a hard time holding down jobs
Yeah.
and may even earn less than their peers.
Wow, so the impacts are pretty far-reaching.
Yeah.
There was also an article about ADHD in the criminal justice system.
That's a complex one. Research has found a higher rate of ADHD in prison populations, with some studies even suggesting a greater likelihood of getting convicted and reoffending.
But the article was careful to say that this doesn't mean ADHD directly causes crime.
Right.
There are a lot of other factors involved,
Right.
right? Like addiction or other mental health conditions.
Exactly. It's not a simple cause and effect situation at all.
Right.
This actually raises some really important questions about how we can better support people within the justice system
Yeah.
who may be dealing with these overlapping challenges.
Okay, so we've covered some pretty intense stuff.
Mhm.
Let's shift gears and talk about what can help treatments for ADHD.
Thankfully, there's a lot of promising research out there.
Okay.
Both medication and behavioral therapies can make a huge difference.
Let's start with medication. One article mentioned that medication can actually directly improve the challenges we were just talking about.
That's right. When it comes to medication, research is mainly focused on two types:
Okay.
stimulants and non-stimulants.
Most people probably think of stimulants like Ritalin and Adderall when they think about ADHD meds.
Well, those are definitely the most commonly prescribed.
Right.
They work by increasing dopamine and norepinephrine in the brain.
And that helps with focus hyperactivity and impulsivity.
Mm-hmm.
One article even mentioned stimulants can improve driving
Right.
and might even reduce the risk of accidents.
It all comes full circle.
Wow.
But then there are non-stimulant options like Stradera,
Oh, okay.
which works a little differently.
It specifically targets norepinephrine
Mm-hmm.
and seems to be a preferred option if there are concerns about substance abuse.
Exactly. There are other non-stimulants too,
Okay.
like guanfacine and clonidine, though they might not be as effective as stimulants in some cases.
Gotcha.
Now, I know medication for ADHD can be controversial, but I found it reassuring that some common worries have actually been debunked by research.
Yeah, like that fear that ADHD medication will lead to substance abuse.
Hmm.
The research actually suggests the opposite, that it might even decrease substance abuse in people with ADHD.
There's also that FDA warning about stratera and suicidal thoughts, which can be scary.
Yeah, that one definitely caught my attention.
Yeah.
But the research you gave me showed that a bunch of studies done since that warning haven't actually found any proof that Stratera increases suicide risk.
That's right. It just shows how important it is to talk openly with your doctor about any concerns.
Right.
Informed decisions are key, and medication is only one part of the picture.
Right.
Behavioral therapies are incredibly valuable too, especially when combined with medication.
Right. Things like parent training or classroom interventions that help people develop coping strategies.
Exactly. And it's not just for kids. There are behavioral therapies designed specifically for adults with ADHD too.
Oh, cool.
But honestly, we still need more research into how well some of these behavioral interventions work long term.
So medication helps with the brain chemistry side of ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And behavioral therapy gives you tools to manage everyday challenges.
Exactly. It's a powerful combination. What stood out to you from all this research?
Honestly, it was the dopamine transfer deficit hypothesis,
Okay.
or DTD as they call it.
Okay.
That idea really grabbed my attention.
I can see why. It's a fascinating theory
Yeah.
that attempts to explain why people with ADHD experience some of their core symptoms.
Right.
Essentially, it suggests there's a delay in the release of dopamine in response to rewards or the anticipation of rewards in people with ADHD.
So it's like their brains are getting the same feel-good signal when they do something good or are about to get something good.
Exactly. And this delay in dopamine signaling
Yeah.
could lead to issues with motivation,
Right.
staying focused, and controlling impulses.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It explains why someone with ADHD might have a harder time sticking with a task, even if they know it will lead to a good outcome in the long run.
It also sheds light on why stimulant medications can be so effective.
Because they boost dopamine levels.
Right, by increasing the amount of dopamine available.
Yeah.
Stimulants can help to make up for that delayed dopamine signaling,
Gotcha.
basically giving the brain the boost it needs to stay focused.
So they're kind of filling in the gaps.
You could say that, of course, the DTD hypothesis is just one theory among many,
Right.
and there's still a lot we don't know about the brain and ADHD.
But it's a really interesting way to think about ADHD, and it really drives home the importance of dopamine in attention, motivation, and even self-control.
It also provides a scientific explanation for why treatments like stimulant medications work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to remember that medication isn't a magic bullet.
Right.
Not everyone responds to stimulants the same way,
Right.
and some people have concerns about potential side effects.
Yeah, it's important to weigh those things, and having an honest conversation with your doctor is crucial. What other research jumped out at you?
For me, it was the research on the effects of ADHD on driving.
Right.
It's really concerning.
Yeah.
The research suggests the impairments caused by ADHD are similar to those seen in people driving under the influence of alcohol.
That's scary.
Yeah.
One of the articles described how in a driving simulator,
Hmm.
people with ADHD had significantly more crashes and trouble steering,
Right.
even though they knew the rules of the road as well as anyone else.
Exactly. It's not about knowing the rules. It's
Uh-huh.
about the ability to focus, react quickly, and control impulses while behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And that's where ADHD can create serious problems.
And that's not just a risk to the driver, it's a risk to everyone else on the road too.
This is a public safety issue.
Yeah.
And we need more awareness, especially encouraging early intervention.
Mm-hmm.
People with ADHD need to be encouraged to seek treatment.
Yeah.
And doctors should be screening for ADHD, especially in teenagers who are about to start driving.
Yeah, it's all about making the roads safer for everyone.
Right. We need to make sure people with ADHD have the resources they need to manage their condition
Yeah.
and drive safely.
Right.
Things like driver rehabilitation programs or
Yeah.
even specific driving lessons can make a huge difference.
Okay, so driving's a big one. What else grabbed your attention from the research?
You know, I found the section about the different categories of ADHD medications really fascinating.
Okay.
Each medication works in its own way, and they have different benefits and side effects.
One of the articles broke them down into those main categories: stimulants, non-stimulants,
Right.
and then the alpha-2 agonists,
Mm-hmm.
which are kind of a different approach.
Right. And within each category, there's even more variety.
Wow.
It's important to understand those differences because what works for one person might not work for another.
For instance, stimulants like Ritalin and Adderall are the most common.
Right.
They boost those key brain chemicals,
Hmm.
dopamine and norepinephrine,
Mm-hmm.
to help with attention, focus, and impulsivity.
But as we mentioned before, those benefits can come with side effects,
Yeah.
like trouble sleeping, decreased appetite, or even anxiety.
Right.
And some people might be worried about the possibility of addiction, too.
That's where those non-stimulants like Strattera can be a good alternative. They work differently,
Right.
mainly targeting norepinephrine,
Right.
and they don't carry the same addiction risk.
But they might take longer to have an effect and may not be as helpful for everyone.
Gotcha.
Then there are the alpha-2 agonists like guanfacine and clonidine. Those are actually medications for blood pressure,
Okay.
but they've also been found to help with ADHD.
They work on a different part of the brain, modulating activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in things like planning and decision-making.
Exactly. And sometimes they're used along with other medications,
Okay.
particularly when there are other challenges like anxiety or PTIX.
So there are a lot of options when it comes to medication, but it's clear that finding the right fit is a personal journey. What works for one person may not work for another.
That's why having a doctor you trust and can talk to honestly is so essential.
Right.
They can help you navigate all these options and
Yeah.
make the best choice for your situation.
Right.
And remember, you don't have to go through this alone.
Absolutely. A good doctor will work with you to figure out the best treatment plan,
Right.
and will make changes along the way as needed.
Right. Treatment for ADHD isn't just a one-time thing.
Right.
It's about ongoing care and finding what works best for you over time. What about behavioral therapies?
Right.
We touched on them earlier, but I think they deserve a deeper dive.
I agree. It seems like behavioral therapies are all about learning those essential coping skills to deal with the everyday challenges of ADHD.
That's the heart of it. While medication can help with the brain chemistry side,
Yeah.
behavioral therapy gives you practical tools to manage your symptoms and
Right.
create positive changes in your life. It's particularly helpful for children with ADHD.
Okay.
Techniques like parent training, which helps parents manage their child's behavior,
Right.
and classroom interventions that provide structure and support in school
Right.
can make a world of difference.
It makes sense to start early, giving kids the tools they need to navigate their ADHD as they grow. What about adults? Are there specific therapies that work for them?
Absolutely. Cognitive behavioral therapy,
Okay.
or CBT, is one that's proven really effective for adults.
Okay.
It focuses on recognizing and changing those negative thought patterns and behaviors
Right.
that can make ADHD symptoms worse.
So it's about understanding how your thoughts influence your actions and learning to break those unhelpful cycles.
Exactly. And then there are therapies that target very specific challenges,
Okay.
like time management or organization skills,
Yeah.
which can be especially helpful for adults with ADHD who are struggling in those areas. It's about finding the strategies that will empower you to succeed in your daily life.
That makes a lot of sense. But I've heard people say that behavioral therapy isn't always effective for ADHD. Is that true?
There's definitely been some debate about its effectiveness.
Okay.
The research findings aren't always clear-cut.
Yeah.
And honestly, behavioral therapy takes more effort than simply taking medication.
Right.
You have to be committed to learning and practicing new skills.
So it's not a quick fix. It's a commitment to personal growth and change.
Right.
But if you're willing to put in the work, behavioral therapies can be incredibly beneficial.
Absolutely. Think of it like this.
Okay.
Behavioral therapies give you the toolbox,
Right.
and you learn how to use those tools to build a better life with ADHD.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It really highlights how empowering these therapies can be. So what are some of the specific techniques used in these behavioral therapies?
Yeah.
What can people expect if they try them?
One common starting point is psychoeducation.
Okay.
It's all about understanding what ADHD is,
Right.
the symptoms,
Yeah.
how it affects your life.
Okay.
It's kind of like laying the groundwork.
So knowledge is power.
Exactly. Then there are techniques specifically designed to help with attention and focus.
Okay.
Things like breaking down big tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks,
Right.
establishing a consistent routine,
Yeah.
and using visual aids like reminders or calendars can be really helpful.
It sounds like it's all about setting up your environment to support focus and minimize those ADHD-related distractions.
Right. And for managing impulsivity and hyperactivity,
Yeah.
there are techniques like relaxation exercises,
Okay.
deep breathing, or even mindfulness practices that can help calm the mind and body and encourage more self-control.
Those are all about finding a sense of calm amidst the chaos, right?
Exactly. And then there are techniques to improve organization and time management skills.
Okay.
Things like using planners,
Right.
making to-do lists,
Yeah.
setting realistic goals, and sticking to deadlines can be game changers.
It's about taking those overwhelming tasks and breaking them down into manageable steps,
Yeah.
learning to prioritize and use your time effectively.
You got it. Behavioral therapies are about empowering you to take charge of your ADHD, not letting it control you.
Right?
But as we said earlier, it takes dedication.
Yeah.
It's not a magic solution.
Right.
It's a journey of self-discovery and skill building.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
It
We've covered so much ground, from the science behind ADHD to its impact on people's lives and all the way to the different treatments that can help.
It's been a fascinating exploration, and hopefully our listener has a much better understanding of this complex condition now. Before we wrap up, I think it's important to touch on a few key factors to consider when thinking about treatment options, whether for yourself or someone you care about.
I agree. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. but,
Exactly. For example, age is a big one.
Yeah.
The research is still catching up on the safety and effectiveness of medication for very young children.
Right.
So for preschoolers, behavioral therapies are often the preferred starting point.
Okay.
But as kids get older, medication might become a more important part of their treatment plan, especially as academic demands increase.
And the severity of ADHD also plays a role.
Yeah.
Right? I remember reading that for milder cases, non-medication approaches like behavioral therapy or lifestyle changes might be enough to manage symptoms effectively.
That's true for some people, but for more severe cases, medication either by itself or combined with behavioral therapy might be necessary to get those symptoms under control and improve quality of life.
It's all about finding what works best for the individual and the challenges they're facing.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to consider any other conditions that might be present, like anxiety or depression.
Right.
Some medications, such as bupropion or certain alpha-2 agonists, can be helpful for managing those co-occurring conditions alongside ADHD.
Sometimes it's like solving a puzzle,
Yeah,
finding the right pieces to fit together for the most effective treatment plan.
that's a great way to put it. And that's why having a strong relationship with a knowledgeable doctor is so essential. They can help you navigate these complexities and make informed decisions and make adjustments along the way as needed.
Because finding the right approach for ADHD isn't always a straight line. It's an ongoing journey.
Well said. And remember, every journey is unique.
Yeah.
What works for one person might not work for another, and that's perfectly okay. The key is to find what works best for you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into ADHD, I want to leave our listener with a thought.
Okay.
Given all we've learned about ADHD and the many paths to treatment, what factors would you personally prioritize when making decisions about ADHD treatment for yourself or someone you care about?
That's a great question to reflect on. It encourages us to think critically about what matters most and to advocate for the best possible care. Ultimately, informed decision-making comes down to understanding your options and weighing the potential benefits and risks. And it's a conversation you should always have with a healthcare professional who can provide personalized guidance and support.
Absolutely. We hope this deep dive is giving you the knowledge and confidence to navigate the world of ADHD and to seek the support you need. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating deep dive into the world of research.